What's up, everybody? I genuinely hate videoing myself, but I'm gonna do it. So anyway, we're gonna talk about what's going on with this car and why it's in the condition it's in and all this stuff that we're about to put in. We are waiting on the supercharger to come back. That's gonna be sweet. So let's dive into it. I'm not gonna film myself talking about it. I'm gonna film me talking about it over there. All right, everybody, thanks for bearing with me. So this is where we're at. This thing was perfectly assembled not too long ago. All right, so what's off? We don't have any covers on, obviously. The cams are still in place. The secondary timing chain is still in place. The primary chains are out. Our sprocket for the chains are out. The oil pump is missing. So that's all gone. We'll jump under in just a second so we can see what's taken apart underneath. And then this is kind of everything that's on it. So we'll also go through these parts and what we're using to build this car up. I'm very excited. All right, so this is everything off the car. I kind of wanted to go through it because it'd be nice to go through the parts while they're off the car rather than pointing at them while they're on it. So you can get kind of a view of what things look like. These are the valve covers, obviously. I have my little modified bungs I welded on there for the PCV system, so that's gonna vent the crankcase. I have a video on what happens when you go from naturally aspirated to boosted, which is why these got welded on. And that whole system got basically redesigned. This is most of the stuff we're gonna use on the car. This is the timing cover, pretty simple. You gotta be careful of Ford timing covers. There are Cobra specific timing covers and different timing covers per year, so definitely tricky. Hardware, everything's bagged. You know, you gotta try and stay organized with everything. This is our supercharger bracket. It has been modified and it fits perfect. So what needed to be fixed was the end of the supercharger bracket was messed up. So a buddy of mine with a lathe actually cut this piece that sits in there, and that's where this pulley mounts. And that's the pulley holds up against the alternator. So it's a nice, solid, strong steel that's on there now, which is nice. Upper intake, didn't really modify the upper intake at all. It's kind of the same thing it's been. We will maybe be switching throttle bodies, so that'll be interesting. This is the PCV system hose. So this goes from the passenger side or driver side valve cover all around the back of the motor and into the breather tank. This is the other hose for the breather tank. These hoses you make, so you buy the fittings, you buy the hose, you have to put it together. This is not cheap. AN fittings and stainless steel line like this, I mean, just this hose right here is probably $100. So that hose is a little bit more than that, and once you put it all together, it all adds up really fast. This is our forward fuel rail that connects the two fuel rails in the front. Also -6 AN, so I'll go through some of the fittings here. It's kind of cool. So this is Red Horse Performance. I have kind of fallen in love with these guys recently. I called them and talked to those guys. And we kind of developed a little bit of a relationship with them, and so I started using their product, and this is my first introduction to it. I really like it. It's a nice finish on the line and the fittings, and it's just for how they're priced, man, I don't see an issue with it, so probably gonna stick with this. Earl's fittings is kind of what I'm used to, which these are Earl's fittings. Now these are also very high quality fittings. They're kind of the standard top of the line. And that's Earl's hose. So this is an example of Earl's setup. Earl's is a little more expensive, and Earl's can be really, really difficult to get a hold of because they go on back order with stuff, and then they just don't make it until they get enough orders in. So you might find yourself in a stuck spot with Earl's, which is kind of the whole reason I ended up on Red Horse's train, is because I had trouble getting some of the fittings I needed for the Earl's stuff. This is the coolant crossover kit. This is part of what I had to redesign. So with the supercharger, there was no way to mount this and that sensor be there. What's up, pup dog? So when I put it together, I mounted it like this. I think this is gonna work fine because it'll still swirl the water here as it passes through, and you'll see it, it'll probably pull it in and out of there. This sensor goes all the way to the bottom. So if any of this water ends up in here, so it's gonna swirl and it'll collect in there plenty. And then also the heat transfer from this housing is gonna transfer into this brass housing, and that's also gonna activate the sensor. So it's gonna have accurate temperature even though I extended it out. Not really worried about that. This set of fittings, I don't know where these came from. but that's, you know, it's On3 Performance. So I don't know if On3 actually makes the fittings or what the story is there. But anyway, this is On3 Performance's kit. I have a whole video about how this kit's designed, and I don't really like it. Not that I don't like the quality of the product. The product is good. But this kit and a bunch of other kits, they designed them incorrectly. And I'm not going to get into that because I will have an entire video of that. But I'll give you the quick shortcut version of it. So there's that piece and there's this piece, which is the coolant crossover. And this basically goes to the upper radiator hose, which is this unit right here. So they both come in here. And then there's another fitting right here, and they say that you're supposed to hook it to that cooling line in the back where your heater is, and that's wrong because it's flowing coolant incorrectly. So what I did to fix it is I took that fitting that they're putting back there to the heater hose, and I ran it straight down. These are super cool. So these are made by Gates, and these are hose clamps. So this is a split right here into another hose that has, you know, a conversion into it, and then it has another hose that goes into another conversion that's a 40 degree. But these are Gates hose clamps, and it's kind of like a shrink wrap that turns into a really hard plastic. I love these things. So anytime I want a hose where I don't want to, I mean, imagine that. You'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 clamps, 5 clamps down there, and it's a 6 clamp up here. Imagine 6 of those hanging out up in this thing. So I got rid of that. I just put one on the bottom, one on the top, and I use these to attach this, and that's not going anywhere. So kind of I've never seen people really use them too much. So here we go. I'm just going to be an experiment for you guys. That's what I'm here for. Oh goodness, we need this. This is the tool that holds the, not holds, but kind of sets the motor in TDC. So that means you set it on that dowel right there, that little locator pin, and that means the crankshaft is at TDC. And then it has lockers in the back, so the cams are actually at TDC. So there's no coming out of time right now. The engine is timed, just gonna stay there. Just stay right there. Yeah, so that's pretty much it there. I'm gonna get a new tensioner because this one's old and crusty. I don't like old and crusty stuff. This is my AC system. It's very efficient. It has very good recirc of the ambient air. So yeah, that's the AC compressor. All right, and then this is my timing set, chain guides, and some spark plugs, which I'm going to replace. There's some more chain guides. Spark plugs, I use copper plugs because they have the highest resistance to detonation. Copper flows current really, really well, so no issues there. And then you just have to replace them a lot, but they're $2 a plug. So if you break one or foul one or something happens to one, $2.50, something like that. Good to go. Ford steel timing chain tensioners. Those are supposed to be what you got to use. So I like that. The issue we're having. All right, so now let's get into what's going on with the motor. All right, so real quick, I figured I'd jump under here and take a look. So as you can see, the motor crank's in good shape. We got a good crankshaft in there, kind of mediocre rods. Kind of not the best pistons. Oh, trying to get a better shot at it. So yeah, I mean, everything looks clean, man. Look at that. Look at that shot right there. See if I can get the right lighting on it. Come on. Oh yeah. Yeah, so there you go. That motor looks good up inside there. The whole thing looks like that. Very, very, very happy about it. Everything else on the car, you know, it's outside. Looks a little crusty, but it's the outside. What's important is the inside looks good. All right, so that's that. Let's go into what we had a problem with. This is our old oil pump, and this is what I found in the oil pan when I took the oil pan off. That's insane. And if you think that's bad, how about that? So that's what I found in the oil pan when I took the oil pan off. The motor had no issues driving around. I don't know why this was in there. So obviously it broke, and I decided that it was a full circle shape because most of them were pretty round. All right, so where the hell did these come from? I posted on a Facebook page, you know, a picture of these, trying to figure it out. At first we thought they were keepers, but that's not right. So then the next thing was, it's a dowel. All right, where's this dowel in the motor? So we searched forever to try and find it. So we all thought it was probably the dowel that goes with the cam, you know, cradle cap. But those dowels are larger than these pieces, which I can't really get it in there. Yeah, so those dowels are, it's a larger piece than what this is. Not by much, but enough. So that wasn't what it was. And then at the same time, you know, with those being broken, there was a bunch of stuff like this in there, and everything was from the same thing. It was all the same material, same color, marked the same. So the oil pump, the reason I took the oil pump out is because I think this oil pump got started dry. It was a used pump, and it just had like noise on startup, and I felt like the oil pump wasn't, you know, pulling oil fast enough from the pan. And sure enough, it has scuffs in here. They're not too bad, but I still think this oil pump was started dry. So this thing's basically useless. These are our oil pump gears. This is what you replace if you get, you know, billet gears. These are what crack and come apart on the motor. And then what I wanted to look at was, and this is very small and tedious to find, but if you look right there, it's kind of a harsh cut. Almost like something got stuck in there and scuffed. And there's that scuff on all these, but none of them have that. So when you look inside the housing itself, I'm gonna try and get this out with one hand. Yep. You can see right here, it also got scuffed. So it caught something right there and drug it across this ridge. And then it ended up in the motor side of the pump. So the way this pump works is, as the piece rotates, the channel opens up on this side, and then it tries to close on this side. So there's little spaces between the gears, open and close, open and close. So open sucks oil in, gets trapped in that little hole, crosses this, which is supposed to be basically such tight tolerances that oil can't travel across it, goes across here inside that channel. When it comes in here, that channel closes up and presses the oil into this side, which then runs into the block. And then if it overpressurizes, the spring pushes in from here, and that hole opens up, and then oil is allowed to travel back down through here, and then you see it is now on the opposite side, back on this side of the oil pump gears. So that's how your oil pump works. So if you have something that comes apart in your motor, right, and so I doubt this is everything. You know, this is just what we saw on the bottom of the pan. Something comes apart in the motor, though, you're left with all this material. I bet you there's a bunch of pieces that are smaller than that. Well, if they're smaller than the screen on the oil pickup tube, so something like this, I would have no concern with finding that in the bottom of my pan. Like, that's never going to damage the engine. Once it's in the pan, it's down there. But if it's small enough to get through the screen, it's going to travel through here, which is what this scuff could have been. And then it goes into this side of the block and then runs into your oil filter. So if it goes through the oil pump, it's probably just going to damage the oil pump, and it'll get caught in the oil filter. And that's why oil filters are so important. So that's where we are with this thing. We found all this stuff in here. Well, what the hell is this stuff? We're still wondering what that is. So we ended up finding it. So I'll go show you right now. All right. So what is it? It is this right here. So notice this one has a sleeve. This one does not. This one has a sleeve, this one does not. And that's what it is, it's the sleeve that goes around the secondary chain, and they're popping off. The chain is popping apart. Ridiculous. So, those are aftermarket chains, and that's our problem, is the fact that we have aftermarket chains in the car. So we are going to swap everything back to OEM. It's gonna be a little more expensive, not looking forward to it. Yeah, it is what it is, though. I've put way more than I budgeted in for the supercharger swap on this car, but when it's done, it's gonna be money. It's gonna be good stuff. So that's where we're at right now. We're waiting on the supercharger to come in. Tonight, I am actually going to swap over the chains. I have a set of used OEM chains that I'm gonna get and throw on this motor. So I'm gonna swap those in. We're gonna put the different timing chain tensioners on it. What's hilarious is these chains and these tensioners are what was on this block when it was in the other car. So now it's this engine is slowly rebuilding itself back to its original state. So we're gonna put those other chains on. I have a new oil pump for it. We're gonna prime the oil pump. I can do a little video on priming an oil pump separate of this one, which should be cool. We're doing a big oil pan. It's gonna be a 3-quart plus oil pan. So this whole system with the supercharger and everything probably is gonna look at about 11 quarts of oil, which is I like that because it kind of saves having an oil cooler at the same time. The oil just kind of holds temperature very, very well. And then that's pretty much it. So I will get this stuff done and we'll make another video, and I'll catch you guys up on what's going on later. If you have any questions or anything, hit me up. Let me know. I'll catch you later. Bye.